When we picture a conflict, the default mental image is almost always a tug of war.
Oh, absolutely.
Like two people, heels dug into the mud, white-knuckling a heavy rope.
Just pulling with every ounce of leverage they can possibly muster.
Right. It's the physical manifestation of pure resistance.
Hmm.
Sweaty palms, strained muscles. The entire dynamic relies on opposing forces.
Yeah. The harder one person pulls, the harder the other person has to pull back, simply to survive the encounter. It's an exhausting, continuous expenditure of energy.
And we're, like, heavily conditioned to believe that the only way to win that tug of war is to generate more force.
Hmm.
You have to pull harder. You have to be louder, more articulate, more aggressive. You have to snap back instantly to prove you aren't weak.
Right, because any hesitation looks like you're losing.
Exactly. But imagine the physics of that moment for a second. What happens if, while the other person is straining with all their might, you just, open your hands and drop the rope?
One person goes flying forward. They completely lose their equilibrium. I mean, the tension they were relying on to keep themselves upright just vanishes instantly.
Poof, gone.
And their own aggressive momentum works entirely against them. They defeat themselves.
That sudden, disorienting release of tension, that intentional refusal to pull back,
Yeah,
that is the exact mechanism at the heart of our discussion today.
it really is.
So welcome to today's deep dive. We are exploring the profound, deeply misunderstood power of silence. And we are pulling the core insights for this from a brilliant breakdown by the YouTube channel Stoic Reflections.
Yeah, specifically a video titled, "When You Stay Silent, They Lose Power Stoicism."
The mission here is to completely reframe how you, the listener, view silence. Because we have this pervasive social script that suggests, if you don't defend yourself verbally, you're being overlooked or dominated.
Right. Society basically conditions us to believe that power lies in speaking loudly, in defending fiercely and reacting instantly. But when you examine the psychology and the strategic mechanics of communication, remaining quiet isn't a retreat. It is the ultimate tool for self-mastery and tactical advantage.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because to wield silence effectively,
Yeah.
we first have to map out the mechanics of how we currently hemorrhage our power.
Yeah, how we give it away.
Exactly.
Uh-huh.
And the catalyst is almost always provocation. The source material uses this really visceral metaphor, describing careless remarks, sharp tones, or subtle insults as hooks thrown into the waters of your emotions.
I love that visual. They're casting lines, basically hoping you will bite.
Right.
And when you react, you're taking the bait. You hand over your peace, your clarity, your composure. But when you stay silent,
The hook finds nothing to catch.
exactly, the attempt just collapses under its own weight, and you become essentially ungovernable.
Ungovernable. I love that word for this. It's remarkably similar to how an email phishing scam operates.
Oh, that's a great comparison.
Right. Because you get this urgent, alarming message saying, your bank account is frozen. The scammer's entire goal is to trigger an amygdala hijack to make you panic, abandon your critical thinking, and click that malicious link.
Because they can't actually hack you without your help.
Exactly. The scammer has zero power over your computer system. If you just stare at the email and do absolutely nothing, if you don't bite the hook, the attempt is entirely neutralized. The scam requires your active participation to succeed.
What's fascinating here is the paradox of control that this reveals. We are culturally trained to view the loudest person in the room, the one shouting insults or demanding immediate answers, as the one holding the power.
Right, the alpha, so to speak.
Yeah, but their behavior actually broadcasts a deep psychological fragility. They cannot self-regulate, so they try to regulate you. They rely entirely on your reaction to gain leverage.
Wow. So people who speak too much in tense moments are actually revealing their own fears and fragile egos.
Precisely. They lack discipline. A person who cannot be provoked cannot be manipulated.
That is so powerful. If reacting to provocation is how we hand over the keys to our own system, that naturally leads us to evaluate the sheer amount of energy we waste on unnecessary words.
The energy economy.
Yeah, the source frames this really clearly. Every single word you speak is an investment. It either strengthens your position or weakens it.
It is a brutally pragmatic way to view communication. Speaking in anger gives your enemy exactly what they want.
You're literally funding their attack.
Exactly. You are handing them the currency they need to fuel their narrative. But silence breaks that cycle of escalation. Look at conflict like a fire. Without a reaction, you remove its fuel.
And words, once spoken, you can't take them back.
No, you can't. They linger. They shape perceptions. But silence leaves no trace, and it buys you the advantage of time to reevaluate.
Okay, but wait, doesn't silence just look like you're being a pushover? Like you're just passively taking it? I mean, if someone insults me in a meeting and I just sit there,
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we have to separate passivity from calculated restraint. Passivity is freezing. It's a trauma response driven by fear.
okay.
Strategic silence is not surrender, it is strategy. You are actively deciding when speech will serve a purpose and when it will just feed the fire.
So it's a choice.
A highly calculated choice.
Hmm.
It frees you from the exhausting need to constantly correct every single misunderstanding.
That desperate need to correct the record is such a trap. Like, no, you're twisting my words. Let me explain what I actually meant.
It's exhausting.
It really is. But here's where it gets really interesting. Because there is a massive distinction between outward silence and actual inner stillness.
Oh, absolutely.
Just keeping your mouth shut while your heart rate spikes to like
Yeah.
120 beats per minute, and you are mentally screaming at the person that isn't true power.
The source is very clear on this. True silence is the absence of inner disturbance, not just the absence of words.
Right, because if you're outwardly quiet but inwardly arguing and justifying, that's just suppression.
And suppression is dangerous. Over time, it turns into incredible psychological pressure.
I always think of it like, well, it's the difference between clamping a heavy lid down on a boiling pot of water versus just reaching over and turning off the stove.
That's a great way to visualize it.
Like if you just clamp the lid down, you might stop the water from spilling out for a few minutes, but the pressure is building exponentially. Eventually, it's going to explode. True silence is turning off the heat entirely.
Exactly. The disciplined mind questions the urge to respond. It asks, is this driven by ego? Is it the fear of being misunderstood? Or is it simply a habit?
Yeah, we have this intense need to control how others view us.
We do. But shedding that need for external validation creates an inner stability that just isn't easily shaken by words. Silence acts as a filter.
How so?
Well, the mind pauses and asks, will this response actually improve the situation or just satisfy a momentary urge to strike back? You stop wasting energy on trivial exchanges because nothing inside you insists on being released.
You literally turn off the heat.
You turn off the heat.
And once you master that, once the internal heat is off and you aren't fighting your own urge to speak, that is when silence transforms from a personal defense mechanism into a profound external strategic advantage.
The tactical side of this is brilliant because speaking reveals your position.
Right.
It reveals your intentions, your emotional state, all information that can be used against you. Revealing too much is like leaving the gates of a fortress completely unguarded.
You're just handing them the map.
Exactly. Overtalkers create chains of expectations and vulnerabilities, but the silent person, they remain unreadable,
Unpredictable.
unpredictable, and fundamentally free. Silence frees you to truly listen. You start noticing tone, behavior, subtle patterns.
Wow, yeah. While they're busy talking, you're gathering intel.
Deep insight into what drives and scares other people, and then when you do finally speak, your words become rare. They are considered and incredibly powerful.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener, when you step into your next meeting or find yourself in a tense family debate?
This raises an important question about what winning actually looks like. The greatest advantage is often found in avoidance, not victory.
Avoidance.
Yes, you let others exhaust themselves trying to move you. They speak louder, you remain steady. Because you've gathered information while they wasted energy, your exact, precise words carry immense weight.
It's like the economic principle of scarcity. If you are constantly broadcasting your opinions, the value of your voice plummets.
It just becomes background noise.
But if your words are incredibly rare, the room will fall dead silent to listen to the person who has observed everything and said nothing until the exact right moment.
It commands respect.
It really does. So to kind of synthesize this deep dive, silence is a protective filter for your energy. It's a fortress for your mind and a massive strategic advantage in a really noisy world. It is about governing yourself, not dominating others.
And remember, when you deny others the ability to disturb your inner state, they lose their power entirely. And you gain clarity, composure, and control.
It's a complete paradigm shift.
Sure.
But I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over something that builds on everything we've talked about today. If mastering silence makes you ungovernable to the people right in front of you, what happens when you apply this to the constant noise of the modern world?
Ooh, that's a big question.
Right. If you completely stop reacting to the outrage-driven media and the endless digital notifications, do those loud, demanding forces actually cease to exist in your reality? Think about what you could build with all that reclaimed space.